Hi guys, and we are Empire of Dachshunds. I'm James, and this is...
Rachel.
So, we decided to do this after we moved into our house because we were looking at all of Rachel's movies that came out of storage, and, suddenly it merges with mine, and we have a lot of movies, apparently.
Yeah.
So, we figured, why don't we watch them all, and we'll talk about them here on the interwebs.
And if you hear squeaking, it's just our dachshunds.
Yes, they've decided now that we're doing something, they need to start squeaking toys behind us.
Of course.
Oh, well. So, first one in alphabetical order coming off is 9. Directed by Shane Ackerman, came out in the year 2009. I believe you told me it came out on the 9th of September.
Yes, 999.
Funnily enough, the same year, another movie called 9 came out, which is the musical.
Not as good. No.
But I had actually seen that one. I hadn't seen this.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I saw the musical in theaters, and yeah, this 9, the animated one, is much better, in my opinion. And I like musicals, so I mean,
to be fair, the 9 musical isn't what I would call like the most immediately accessible story in the world. I mean, it's based on a pretty famous foreign film.
Yeah.
It's not. But then I say that when we watch this, and this is what I would describe as not particularly accessible either. I mean, you said it perfectly. Who's this for? Like.
Yeah, because I mean it's like supposed to be an adult, like for adults, but I mean it very easily could be construed for children as well. I mean, it is. Well, Tim Burton was one of the producers on this, and Tim Burton has made quite a few children's movies that are also kind of adultish too, I guess you could say. But yeah, apparently this movie in particular was meant for adults. It was PG-13. What was the things that it said? Violence and
violent imagery and something.
Yeah, it was like death or something like that.
People do die in it. It's pretty grim.
It is, and you even though this is based off of a short film by the director's like college years, you do get Tim Burton's personality in there as well.
I feel like Tim Burton is himself just kind of like a marketing catchphrase at this point for a lot of stuff. He's like, hey you shop at Hot Topic a lot? You're gonna like this real much.
Well, Tim Burton's name is like straight up on this. It doesn't even have the director's name.
To be fair, do you know who Shane Ackerman is?
No, but he is the creator, so I feel that his name should be on the cover at least.
I don't know. Animation and directors it's less of a thing really for the director to be called to the attention of it. I get the feeling like animation, we don't generally look at it as an auteur focus. One guy did all the work. It's obviously took a lot of people to do, so you don't really see famous animation directors as prominently featured usually. I mean, you have like Walt Disney, Hayao Miyazaki, obviously, but I mean, to be fair, Shane Ackerman's also not done anything really since then. Yeah. He was going to direct a live-action Thomas the Tank Engine, which never came to be.
What, was that designed for adults or for children?
I mean, I kind of always got the idea Thomas the Tank Engine was a little more for adults than people realize, because we keep getting all these, like, famous people in them that, like, a kid doesn't care who Ringo Starr or George Carlin is, but they've both been in Thomas the Tank Engine.
Oh, there's a Finny at my feet. Yeah. But what did you think of the movie?
I get the feeling there is someone out there somewhere who this is just the perfect movie for them. It just was not the perfect movie for me. I thought the story was a little broad. I mean, it was more. I think it did a better job building the world than telling the story. Is the way I would put it.
Yeah, it definitely gave the whole idea of like if you notice a lot of those post-apocalyptic movies tend to have like the machines are the cause. And with the brain is what it's called. They had a line in the movie that made me go, oh, they made a god machine. Because they said it's a machine that creates other machines in its image.
But it doesn't have a human soul. Like I said, I love post-apocalypses because it's always like, how did we get here? What's interesting about this one versus, hey, 1,000 other ones?
Kobe.
But you ever get the idea, like, in a post-apocalyptic scenario, like 10 yards down the road, Like this apocalypse never happened. It's just in this isolated space because we see such like an isolated little square of the world they're in. They what are in like 3 locations in the movie. It's like the house, the factory, back to the house, back to the factory.
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
As the sanctuary.
Yeah. So am I supposed to take from this then that France destroys the world? Because he was in the scientist's house.
Yeah, and I did read that there was like some similarities between the Chancellor and like Adolf Hitler, because like some of his movements, like when he was in the car, he made some like movements, and like the flag was a representation of like the swastika.
Yeah, but it took place in the 1930s, didn't it?
Oh, if it was 1930s, they came a long way in technology.
Yeah, I mean, well, when you have not only did they come a long way in technology, they must have made some great theological leaps to not only prove there is a soul, but to actually be able to get it to physically manifest in some way.
Yeah. It's definitely a combination of, not alchemy, but like, what is the word I'm looking for? So it's science and like the supernatural, because that's how you got the soul into the machine.
Yes. So then it begs the question, why did the robot want their souls? Like, if it didn't have a soul, it didn't seem to need it for anything.
It definitely did not explain that, why it was absorbing.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it adds some serious weight to the actual, like, consequences of the plot, because, I mean, you lose your soul, you're not only dying, you're literally losing, like, existence.
Well, and maybe it could be the fact that because the machine didn't have a soul, it wanted to take other people's soul?
I mean, it's entirely possible. This is one of those things in filmmaking, though, where Roger Ebert put it pretty well. It's like, you can only take into account the reality that the movie sets out for you. We can speculate endlessly, but it's not, the movie didn't choose to tell us that.
That is true.
So.
It did not.
Yeah, like I said, I can see this being, like, some kids' like favorite movies. Like, it's dark and it's exciting, and it's got its very, very defined aesthetic. And it does have something to say, which, you know, I'll be honest, I wasn't kind of expecting, but it's also, it's just very particular. I can see the appeal of it being so particular. Like, this is for that 14-year-old who's like, yeah, right on, man.
Like me?
My wife is not a child bride. She's not 14. Do not let her fool you.
No, but I was definitely the, goth teenager. Let's see, what was 2009? I was how old?
I don't know, math.
Math.
So, basically 10 years ago. So you'd be in your 20s at that point.
It was a little before that. So I was like 19.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why they plastered Tim Burton's name all over this thing. To let you know, Tim Burton was involved. Hey, goth kids, come get it.
Yeah. And, it's probably one of the reasons why I got the movie was, Tim Burton, macabre kind of feel to it. And
yeah, nothing wrong with Tim Burton. I mean, like, he gets a kind of a bad rap. I think he had a kind of a slump period there for a bit. Like, I don't know if you want to call it the Johnny Depp years, where it seemed more about putting Johnny Depp in a movie than trying to make a good movie.
Well, they were good friends, so.
Yeah, I mean, but then you had what, like, I didn't care for Alice in Wonderland. I didn't really, I didn't see its point, honestly. Like, why remake it again? Like, we've had so many versions of Alice in Wonderland at this point. I get it. People like drugs. Great. Do we need Tim Burton's take on a kind of a messed up fairy tale? Because he's been making them for dozens of years at this point.
Yeah, at the same time, though, like, I like dark fairy tales. I like it when they take a fairy tale and kind of make it dark, So
that's the thing, though. Like, all his movies, my favorites are the ones that are, like, not his most Tim Burton movie. Like, Big Fish is probably my favorite of his movies, and it's... Yeah, it has some of his, like, aesthetic in it, but it's definitely not a story
it doesn't
you would normally...
scream Tim Burton.
No, and then he made that one about the paintings that had Christopher Waltz in it.
Big Eyes.
I don't know if I ever actually saw that.
I did.
Is it good?
Yeah, it was a good movie.
So, Shane Ackerman, if you want us to talk more about you during the review of your movie, make sure you direct more things.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't... like, I've watched this movie several times. But yeah, like, you do make a point that the story is lacking a few things. Yeah. Like explanation.
And like the questions it does bring up are so strange. Like, why did he choose to make them little sack dolls? Like,
well, I imagine
he can make robots, obviously.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're thinking about a post-apocalyptic society, I mean, you're gonna deal with things that are like readily accessible, and I'm sure there's not a lot of metal because the brain is taking it all. But again, speculation. Who knows?
Yeah, I couldn't say for sure these at this point. Yeah, it was interesting. One of the things I did kind of like about it though is how like it doesn't have like a huge cast, so like they're very well put into the character that they're playing. Like, I'm never gonna be mad to hear John C. Reilly's voice. I'm always happy when he crops up and stuff. I've always been a big fan of his.
And that was 5?
Yes,
Yeah,
he was 5.
I do like him.
And this was during, that 15-year-ish period where Elijah Wood just seemed to crop up everywhere.
Yeah, no, I thought I saw something about like Elijah Wood and a couple of the other people from Lord of the Rings got like these tattoos, and like Elijah Wood's had something to do with the 9, so it was kind of funny that he was in this movie. I don't really know. I didn't really read all of it, so I couldn't really tell you. I just a brief glance is what I saw.
Yeah, and then I mean Christopher Plummer. It's always, when did Christopher Plummer like decide like randomly like 10 years ago? I was like, yep, doing movies again. I mean, the world's better for it. I loved him in Beginners. Obviously, he's most probably famous for being Captain Von Trapp in The Sound of Music, but good to hear him still about. Jennifer Connelly, did fine for what they asked her to do, which admittedly wasn't very much. You can tell that this is very much carried by the action rather than the voice acting. In fact, I would get the feeling, but we didn't know watching it, I would think the short was probably silent.
It was.
Yeah.
I did read that the short was like 11 minutes long and didn't have any sound. Which kind of like, if you think about it, in the beginning of the movie, 9 can't speak. Mm-hmm. And then actually one of the cool things that I did read was the similarity between this and Coraline, how they both start with like basically them being stitched together. Like Coraline and 9 being stitched together.
That's another movie that kind of falls into this like weird, like very specific niche of spooky animated films, like something for the 12 to 16 crowd rather than the like 5 to 8, or being a movie I would say is specifically aimed at adults.
Or like us millennials that still kind of like to watch things from our childhood. It kind of gives that childhood.
Our dog is acting crazy.
Yes.
Apparently the second we started talking to one another, he decided he's the star of the show.
Yes.
So, would you recommend it to someone to go watch? Like, if someone was like, hey, you got a cool movie to watch, would you pull 9 off the shelf and hand it to them?
Yeah, I mean, I would. It would definitely depend on the type of person. Like, if I know that there's somebody who really appreciates a good storyline, I might be like, but if you just like, good visuals. I mean, it did have really good details where you can really see, like, the detail in the burlap and stuff like that. Visually, it was really good.
It's quite impressive, because we're watching this on DVD, not on Blu-ray. Her copy is a DVD, and it's funny to see the ads for Blu-ray. Like, I forgot there was a time when that wasn't the kind of standard. I know we still make DVDs, but like, we were still trying to convince people at this point that Blu-ray was worth your time, and it just being like, it's great seeing everything all the time.
Yeah, but I mean, it still did good for like I said, that detail. So if you like, visuals and you're not so dead set on a perfect plot, then I'd suggest it. I mean, I think it's a good, perfectly cromulent movie.
Why did you say that in an accent?
I don't know.
I probably wouldn't, unless, like you said, it's someone very specific I would say to recommend it to. Like, again, it's interesting to look at, but I've watched it. I'm not like, man, gonna watch that again sometime soon. Gotta absorb the details of it. I've seen plenty of movies like that. Like, last animated film that really hit me that way was The Box Trolls. I was like, damn, I want to watch this again right now.
I've actually never seen that one.
It's good. It's funny you brought up Coraline, because we were talking before this about the studio made it, and I was curious whether Leica had made this, which would be a little weird since Leica's a stop animation studio, but Yeah, but supposedly there might be a sequel coming. It's entirely possible. For whatever reason, the Facebook account that was made for the scientist in the movie was reactivated recently and had some cryptic messages put on it. They're wondering if that's kind of advertisement for a possible sequel. Which, Shane, do it, man. We'd all love to see you make another movie. Even if, if you got to get that Thomas the Tank Engine money out first, then, by all means. I'm not... And then he had another one that's about dogs solving a mystery. I don't know. I was reading bits and pieces here and there about it, but I didn't really do any...
We hate dogs.
Alright. So I think... Any final thoughts?
No, I'd just say comment if you enjoyed this movie or if you didn't, or let us know if now you're interested in seeing it or think it's absolute garbage.
Yes. As you can hear, there's a very contentious argument happening in the background here. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe here, and
we'll see you next time.